The Supreme Court says the national health care law stands, but some Republican governors say they don't care. They're refusing to implement the law. Instead, they're counting on Governor Mitt Romney winning the election and repealing Obamacare. Florida Governor Rick Scott is one of the leading opponents of the president's health care law. So what does he plan to do next? Governor Scott joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. You know, it was so disappointing. This is going to be devastating for patients, devastating for taxpayers. It's going to be the biggest job killer ever. We're not going to implement Obamacare in Florida. We're not going to expand Medicaid because we're going to do the right thing. We're not going to do the exchange because what this does is raise the cost of health care for all Floridians. It just doesn't work.
Does it not? I mean, let me separate out one part, take it one by one. The expansion of the Medicaid, you are not going, you say that you're going to reject that money from the federal government?
We're already struggling. Medicaid has been growing in the state of Florida at 3.5 times our general revenue. 3.5 times. It's growing way faster than our economy's come back. We've had the biggest drop of unemployment of any state in the last year and a half than one. So our economy is coming back well, but Medicaid was still growing faster. This would be devastating. It would increase the cost to Florida taxpayers $1.9 billion per year. We can't pay for that. There's no way that Floridians can pay for that.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, that Medicaid is one category that you say that is growing and it's very costly to Florida. I've got that. But when I talk about Medicaid expansion, what I understand that to be is expanding the pool of people who are eligible for Medicaid. And as I further understand is that expanded pool, which is going to be, it has to be paid for, that the federal government is going to pay for that 100% of it for a period of time, and then later on down the future, the state, in your case Florida, would have to pick up about almost 10% of the freight. Is that how you understand it? Am I wrong about that?
But Florida taxpayers pay for the federal government. We pay our portion of those federal taxes. In some
states where we don't, with some states, like, one of the things it pays for is like for a nursing home for senior citizens, which I assume is not an insignificant matter in your state, and so other states actually help pay for Florida as they contribute to the federal government.
No. We are a donor state. We pay more than our fair share of taxes. The $1.9 billion is the expansion because of Obamacare. We already have the issue that our Medicaid program, which, look, we care about having a health care safety net for the vulnerable Floridians. But this is an expansion that just doesn't make any sense. Look, every government program in the world, they say, I'm going to cover everything. They run out of money. They're not honest. They stop paying providers well, and then there's no one to take care of you. That's exactly what this will do. Florida businesses, there's no way. I was in a business the other day, and they walked up to me and they said, Governor, is this really going to become the law? Because if it does, we're out of business. We have 20 employees. We know we won't be able to buy any health care for anybody. So this doesn't do the drivers. Free market fixes health care. This is just a big government insurance program that does nothing to deal with the cost of health care. The free market will fix health care.
All right, it seems we have two options. One is you can hope that President Obama is not reelected and that it's Governor Romney, since he said he's going to work to repeal it. That's choice number one. And I guess well within that choice also is that the Senate goes Democrat and they work it that way. The other choice is simply to say no to the Medicaid expansion and no to creating, I guess, these exchanges. What happens then in your state?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work tirelessly to make sure this gets repealed. So we're going to elect individuals that say we're going to get rid of this because we know it's devastating for patients, taxpayers, and jobs. We need jobs in our state. Now, if that doesn't happen, we're still not going to implement these exchanges. Exchanges are not going to reduce the cost of health care. They're going to increase the cost of health care. Expanding Medicaid is not going to help the citizens of Florida. It's not going to make Medicaid better. It's going to make it worse. We're going to run out of money. The things that we care about, we won't be able to afford. Just for Floridians, it'll be a $1.9 billion tax increase.
If you don't do the state exchanges, and tell me if I'm wrong, does the law not provide that the federal government essentially creates an exchange for you? It sort of forces you into a federal exchange. Is that wrong?
Well, look, here's what I personally believe. I believe it's going to get repealed because I believe this is going to be a rallying cry on top of jobs. But if it ever becomes a law, we're not going to implement those exchanges. I don't believe the federal government will, because they're going to come to the same conclusion that I've come to. This will not reduce the cost of health care for Americans.
Since the decision came out yesterday, have you spoken to any other Republican governors and sort of begun to form a group of how to go further with this?
Absolutely, and everyone I've spoken to is doing the same thing. We're saying, look, we are not going to expand Medicaid. We're not going to implement the exchanges. We're going to do everything we can to make sure we elect individuals that are going to repeal this, because we care about the citizens of our state. We know this will be bad for their health care. We want jobs in our state. This is going to put American businesses at an unbelievable disadvantage as compared to businesses around the world.
Who's drawing a line in the sand with you? I mean, I think it's pretty plain you're making your position very well known, and you're drawing that line in the sand. What other governors have you spoken to that you think that are rallying around with you on this?
Well, if you look at what other governors are saying, look at what Scott Walker said up in Wisconsin, look at what Governor Perry said, look at what Bobby Jindal said down in Louisiana. We all know that this will be bad for the citizens of each of our states. If we have got to work tirelessly to elect individuals this fall, they're going to repeal this, because citizens in every one of our states needs jobs. This will be a job killer. We need to make sure we can take care of the vulnerable, and we can afford it. Those that have to have health care provided by the state and federal government. We can't do that if this becomes the law.
Is it cheaper for the system of Florida that if you don't have it, that instead you have the situation where people who don't have health insurance, assuming they're not covered by anything, if they just go to an emergency room and get medical care there, does that turn out to be cheaper for the system or not?
Well, Greta, I ran a program in 2009. What we should do, if we want to reduce, which we have to do, reduce the cost of health care, we need consumers to be able to choose the health care policy they want. Then you need to know what things cost. You need more competition. You should have a tax break as an individual, just like a business, so when you change jobs, you don't lose your health care, so the pre-existing condition will go away. And reward people for eating right, exercising, don't smoke. That will actually reduce the cost of health care, so more people afford health care. The more government involvement, the more, just saying somebody's going to buy insurance doesn't mean any of us can afford it. And think about, what has the government ever purchased cheaper than the private sector? They don't. They always overpromise and underdeliver.
And of course, one of the things that I keep hearing is about the doctor shortage, which is sort of curious. You can have health insurance, but you can't get a doctor. The health insurance isn't going to do you any good, and I'm not sure what we're doing about that problem.
Greta, look around the world. Look at the UK system, the Canadian system, where they just like Obamacare, they promise all these things, and they don't have enough money. So what happens? Providers don't. There's not enough providers. There's not enough doctors to take care of people. You have unbelievable waits. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Governor, thank you, and we'll be watching. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thanks, Greta. Have a good night. Bye-bye.